Askit works.
Hey, don't put pressure on me, okay? I don't know. Let's see how this is going to work today. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brooke. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Sherry, for all of that. Let's talk a little bit about the Askit basket. Earlier this week, I posted on Facebook in a couple of forums that I'm in and on my page. Anybody have any questions about our recovery? And you know what? They did. They had questions, and I think we all, have a lot of questions. And it's great to have these sorts of things where we can kind of kick it around. I've been thinking a lot about what Jesus said in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 31 and 32. And he said, this is what it says. Jesus said to the people who believed in him, "You are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teaching. Mm-hmm. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And I've been thinking a lot about that, because whenever Jesus talks in the Bible, I just try to listen. And because, he's God. And
he's the man.
Yeah, he's the man, right? So here, Jesus is telling you and me and everyone who believes in him that we'll find freedom if we know the truth. Well, what is the truth, right? And the truth is, first of all, that Jesus is our Savior, the one who's going to get us out of this addictions, afflictions, and compulsive behaviors mess we've managed to get ourselves into. That's first and foremost. But for those of us in recovery, there are more implications to the truth. For instance, the truth of our situation is in Jesus, but there's also some recovery truths as well that we need to remember. I was just talking today about with a recovery friend who is newer in the walk of recovery, and about some of the materials that are good for me to know and read and stay knowing about in recovery. One of them that is very dear to me is the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That tells me a lot about myself and some truths in there. Another one is the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's been very, very, very meaningful to me to know the truth. I love the Life Recovery Bible. The Life Recovery Bible is so necessary for me to be able to apply biblical truths to my recovery. And I need all of these things so that I will know the truth, because I can go to meetings or I can talk to people and people will say a lot of things, but I need to know the truth so that the truth can set me free. I also have a lot of friends who know the truth, who share it with me, who have walked the path before me or with me. And that's where the Askit basket comes in, I think. So like I said, on Facebook, I asked a bunch of questions. What are your recovery questions? And people answered them. And we have a bunch of questions today that our experts that you're seeing today are going to answer. Categories like this: questions about our addictions, afflictions, and compulsive behaviors, questions about sponsorship, and about recovery suggestions that people say that, it's like, what do they mean? Questions about my emotions in recovery. So we've got some good stuff coming up, and I can't wait to see what you guys are going to teach me today. Yay! Right?
I think every time you say that you have experts, we should also go,
Exactly. Sure.
Hey, listen, what you guys say matters to me because, we need each other. Okay, so why don't we start with just questions about our addictions, afflictions, and compulsive behaviors. We've got some good ones. Tom Kapla, how often do we have a dual addiction and how do you recover? For instance, drugs and sex or codependency and food. When there's dual addictions, how do we recover from them? Codependency, food, drugs, sex.
That is a great question. Yeah. And if you'd asked me in early recovery, I would have probably said, well, not that often. But as I've grown in my own recovery and discovered the own areas, apart from alcoholism, because that's where I started, and discovered all these other things, I realized this dual addiction thing is probably a lot more common than we think. I think I heard one person say, if you scratch an alcoholic and look underneath the paint, you'll find a codependent. I think that's it. I think that's probably true for most of us. You scratch past this surface, we're going to find other stuff, and sometimes they are identifiable addictive behaviors and should be treated accordingly. For me, I discovered later on sex, and I'm just now getting to approach the nicotine addiction. And, so it is a process. And for me, how do we recover from these things? I can only share what I've experienced and what I was told. Take the big one. Whatever it is that's causing you the most problem at that time. Start an honest and serious recovery there, and you will probably discover the other ones by the natural process of working the steps with a sponsor, God revealing things to you, just living life itself in recovery. By its very definition, we're going to wind up finding more about ourselves, and that will often lead us to discover a codependency. Another hurt, habit, hang-up, addiction, affliction that is standing in the way of our relationship with God. And for me, it's, wash, rinse, repeat. It's work the steps, discover something else, rinse, move on, work the step. Yeah, that has been and is my experience. I'm sorry.
Those lines, Tom, keep going on this because there's another question that kind of leads into this. So why don't you just go into this one as well? Somebody asked, how do I know if I'm really powerless or if I'm just going through a bad time with my sexual compulsion, alcohol use, or relationship problems? I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it really is. So since you're on a roll, go ahead.
I smile at that question and not because it's funny, because it is a great question and it's an important question. For me, once I discovered that I was powerless over alcohol, I started seeing what it was that took me there. The times I drank when I didn't want to drink, the continual bad things that happened, maybe not every time I drank, but every time they happened to me, bad things happened. And kind of using that pattern, I can look at my other behaviors. And one of the telling things of it is when I do or repeatedly do that thing after I've said, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Then to me, those are good hints that I don't have the power to make that choice anymore, whether I ever did or not. And there again, back to the original discussion, if I even think that if it's causing me those kind of problems in my life, and it's obstructing my relationship with God, it's hurting me or my relationship with other people, it's keeping me from being what I think God wants me to be, then if I can't make it go away by, quote, willpower, there's a good chance I'm powerless, and I need to start looking at that.
Well, that's a good foundation for this entire talk, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of sets us up for the rest of what we're going to talk about.
I didn't mean to do that.
Today. We thank you, Tom. It's awesome. It really is. Brooke, you're one of our codependents in the group, right?
Yeah.
So you should be able to tell us, how do you help someone who has an addiction? What are the things you should do and should not do?
Ooh.
Okay, so the first thing I think of as a codependent is thing you should do is have boundaries. So you need to know where you and another person begins, and you stick to those boundaries. A lot of times you get yourself into trouble when you find people around you that are in trouble. You want to help them, especially as a codependent. You want to help them, but if you don't have those boundaries in place, you could just go overboard and go down with the sinking ship, so to speak. So it's best to make sure you adhere to your boundaries. Really kind of look into your own self and figure out what can I do, what's my boundary, so that way I don't lose myself in the process of helping someone else. So that's definitely a good situation. What am I willing to help with? What am I not willing to help with? And if it's going to be detrimental and not help me to grow, or detrimental to my recovery or to my relationship with God, then that's something that I personally wouldn't do. So if it's, I have to look at what's best for me and my relationship with God and my recovery before I go and try and help someone else. There are going to be seasons in your life where you're not going to be in a position where you can help someone help in a healthy way, and that's okay. But you have to be able to recognize when you can and can't do that.
That's a great answer.
Awesome.
I love that. I love
That's
that,
good.
Brooke. You know, you kept it on yourself, and that's so good because, you know, codependents so much want to, you know, focus on the other person. You know, while we've got you on the screen there, in that case, this is a great question. I loved the emphasis on it. This person asks, how do the 12 steps work to change me? I mean, really.
I see that.
Go for it.
Well,
Really.
you're asking me, right?
You.
So, briefly, okay, so it gives you a guideline. So when you're going at this whole, you're coming into recovery with your whole life is crazy, a mess, just dysfunctional completely. So the 12 steps, at least for me, gave me a kind of a roadmap on where to start. And it kind of helped me work through a lot of the things that previously, it forced me to work through things I wasn't really willing to broach in a previous time of my life. So it helped me at least give me a roadmap, and it gave me freedom to be able to acknowledge that I had these issues. And it, as I started to work the program, the more freedom I got. So I was not bound by a lot of the anger, the doubt, the self-pleasing stuff, and the different aspects of things, my coping skills that I had used prior to the 12 steps. The 12 steps gave me a lot more healthy coping skills that I had previously, and a lot of those bad behaviors and bad decisions didn't come up as much after I started using the 12 steps. So.
Cool. Awesome. I concur. I agree. Okay, Mike.
Uh-oh. What?
Mike, talk to us about sponsorship. Why is it so important to have a sponsor? What's the role of a sponsor? What do they do? What don't they do? And do you really have to tell them everything? Do you really?
A role of a sponsor is to guide you through them 12 steps that Brooke was just talking about. That's the main purpose. What's the 12 steps is my blueprint to God. So I need a sponsor to help me through that, you know, and to hold, you know, he can hold me accountable. I call him every day. His suggestions for me. You know, we do a lot of inventory, and you know, as we gone through the steps. So yes, I personally needed a sponsor, and I've seen, you know, it says in the big book, rarely have we seen a person fail as, you know, thoroughly followed our path. The people that I've saw in recovery that have time all had sponsors. And a sponsor is very important for me, you know, especially when I did that 5th step to, you know, to confess, you know, basically to confess my sins to him and God. It relieved me all that baggage, you know. That's what I needed him for. I needed him to do a 3rd step prayer with me, you know, hold me accountable to work me through these steps so I can find God. I had it told to me a long time ago, a sponsor takes your hand and leads it to God like this.
Wow.
That's what he does.
Wow, that's
That's
good.
what he does.
Not
You know?
bad at all.
You know, that's the best way I can explain it. I don't think you can thoroughly do the 12 steps without a sponsor.
Cool. While we got you, Mike, while we got you here, there's a couple of suggestions that are kind of like slogans and things like that in some of the programs that we attend. So what is the purpose behind the suggestion to attend 90 meetings in 90 days? What is there any magic in that? I mean, people, inquiring minds want to know.
I wanted to know that for a while too, I get it. And I've heard two different things, 90 meetings in 90 days. At the time, I remember saying to him, I got to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. And my sponsor said, well, you have nothing else going on with your life right now. And he was right. I didn't even have a job, but I think it's to get you involved, to get you to go to different meetings and find out where your home group's going to be, to get phone numbers, to have a fellowship, to get you engaged in this, In the beginning, I know I was full of, and I don't really get anxiety. People tell me I give them anxiety, but I did have anxiety in the beginning of my recovery. I needed these meetings. I needed to talk to my sponsor. I needed to hear these things that were being said to me. But then again, I've been in numerous rehabs, and I can't remember which one, but I remember a therapist or whoever she was came in and said that the brain actually, it takes 28 days to break a habit, or don't quote me on all this because this is a long time ago, to break a habit. But she said in 90 days, your brain makes a chemical change. So I always thought, hey, maybe that's why they say to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, to keep you engaged, get involved in these steps, and then you can find a home group and a fellowship within the fellowship to hang out with. That's all I got.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you. I learned something there about the brain.
Yeah, the brain. It's out to kill me.
Mine too.
Not too much anymore.
Here's a couple of questions that I want to take a shot at because it's so ridiculous that I would take a shot at them. And everybody can laugh when I read them. It says, when is it okay to have a romantic relationship?
I knew you were going to ask that one.
And also, what about if you are already in a relationship when you enter recovery? How do you handle that? And, because I'm such an expert at taking
We know you are.
Recovery or out, I thought I would just listen. One of the things I finally, I think, realized in recovery was that people want to say things like, don't get into a romantic relationship until you've been in recovery a year or something like that. Like there's some period of time where you're going to suddenly totally be spiritually fit and you're going to know everything. Your recovery will go, your relationships are all going to go great because suddenly, we're recovered. And today I realized that that's not so. I mean, the suggestions of waiting, whatever it is, a year, 9 months, a year and a half, whatever it is your sponsor tells you to wait before entering into a romantic relationship. It's only, I've realized, for one reason, I think, and this is what I got told, it's so that when it fails, which it will, you won't fall off your recovery program because you've got a strong enough foundation to be able to withstand that. It's not because we'll suddenly know how to be good, relationship people, because obviously I hadn't had any practice. I had recovery, but I didn't have any practice being in a relationship. So, and that's exactly, what happened to me. So, it's okay to have a romantic relationship in recovery when your sponsor tells you that it's okay. And it's only so that, when you get into a rocky time, you don't fall off the wagon, so to speak. And as for being in a relationship already when you enter recovery, that was my situation. And sometimes that can be really challenging, especially if the person also needs recovery. And the thing that I can say is it's important that you recover no matter what. And so for you to pursue your own recovery and try to accept that other person the way they are is the best thing that I can say, because I know that had I not taken care of my own recovery and had I fallen prey to some of the demands and things that were going on and some of the chaos that was going on, I never would have been able to get over that to be able to recover. So, there's going to be damage in a relationship that starts in recovery. And so it's going to take a long road, but the most important thing is to stay with your recovery and not to pay attention to the other person. So that's the best I can do with that. Sherry, I've got a couple of questions for you. You are the spiritual one.
You paraphrase me every time.
She's shaking her head. Spiritual one around here.
Been in recovery longer than any of us, so.
What do you got?
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about God. How's that? What does the program mean? And I think they're talking about traditional recovery programs. What does the program mean when it tells you to find a God of your own understanding? I thought there was only one God.
Wow. I have to consider the beauty of traditional recovery when they talk about a God of your own understanding, because so many of us, most of us, come at recovery with lots of different ideas, and the beauty of traditional recovery is that every person of every faith practice is on equal standing, whether they believe or they don't believe, or whatever they believe, they can still get sober in traditional recovery. And I just, that what a gift that is, that we can do that. And so what I really think about this is that if we continue in recovery using the traditional recovery route, using the steps, continually seeking God, continually asking God to reveal God's self, then more will be revealed. We all come at this from a different place. Some of us have lots and lots of hurts as it relates to God because of things like you talked about earlier. Sometimes we've been taught things that just aren't true, like God's going to get you for that, or the punishing God. There are things some of us have to overcome when we come into recovery. Some ideas that we have to let go of in order to embrace God, in order to allow God to move into our hearts, reveal himself to us. And then in time, over time, for those who are hungry and willing, God reveals himself. And it is, and it's a journey all of us are on, but in so many different places along the way. And we really need to allow each other to be where we are, and just know that God is at work. That one true God that we've talked about, that our question asker alluded to, is at work. And we can trust God to continue to woo and to draw the people that we love that don't know him yet, and we can love them on the way.
That's awesome, Sherry. I knew that you would have a spiritual answer for this. Thank you for sharing. But on the other hand, here's the other side of the coin, okay? And so I want to keep on you here for a second. It says, so what do you do when you finally had enough? The alcohol doesn't work, the drugs don't work, the sex doesn't work, but you discover Jesus and you find yourself reading the Bible more and praying more. Isn't Jesus enough without the other things like meetings, sponsors, and steps?
Well, I think that Jesus had meetings and Jesus had accountability partners. I mean, he ran with a crew.
Right.
had a way of living. And I mean, that's the way of living we're all trying to get to. And I can't get there by myself. Jesus is enough to let's see, how can I say this? Jesus paid it all. His sacrifice was enough to pay the price for my sin and all of my character defects and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? I am a human being who still doesn't know how to live. I still haven't got that figured out. So I love the fact that as a follower of Jesus, I have these 12 steps and this program to help me live into my beliefs. Because, you know, I don't know if there's anyone else on this little panel or listening who I know what I should do. I know what I should do, but I don't always do it. So, you know, I need some friends to help encourage me. I need some friends to help me along. I need meetings to remind me. I have a forgetter and I need to be reminded. I need to surrender this. I am powerless over people, places, and things. I need to be restored. I need to surrender. And the reason I go to meetings is because I also need to be reminded of this all the time. It scares me to think that I will ever think that I got this.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on.
Know me somehow that I don't. And so I count on all that stuff, the meetings, the sponsorship, and the steps help me live into this faith I believe in. So
that's awesome. You know, that is so awesome because I've often you know said myself that I am a new creation in Christ. I've been made a new creation, but if I don't, you know, seek Jesus more, go to meetings, have, you know, work the steps with my sponsor and do service, the new creation starts looking a lot like the old creation.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah, here. Big time.
That's true.
Hey, Mike, for 1 second, for a quick second, because this is a cute question, but it's really real. I remember asking this. What can a God I can't see do for my very real problems, like drugs, money, relationships, depression, and legal problems? That doesn't sound very practical.
I've seen that. You know, sometimes it's hard to explain what went through, what goes on in you when you do these steps. I could tell you one thing. Without these steps, you know, I always say I'm screwed without these steps, and people don't understand that. I've been in jails before where I didn't practice these steps, and I had all good intentions to do and to seek God when I got out. And I do the same thing over and over again. It drives me crazy when people say sometimes, well, how do you see that? And I'm like, look at my life today by making that step into Grace Church and be treated like the prodigal son. Then the last 10 times I've got out of jail and said I was going to do. And now listen, I was sober in jail for that. Let's see, I've done 15 months, 22 months. You know, I've done some time where I've had, you know, sobriety. But see, I suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction, and I realize I'm powerless, but I'm not seeking the power. I'm not seeking that power of God. And people say, well, is it real? Oh my God, is it real? Look where I was from 3 years ago, you know. And the main thing, I can tell you all the great things that happened in my life that are practical. But I have me back. I have my soul. You know, I feel comfortable in my skin today. Isn't that practical enough? Because I woke up dope sick a lot, or hungover, or in jail. I wasn't really right. How my mind changed as soon as I got out. I don't know if that's answering that question.
That is totally.
I could tell you all the practical blessings. Like people have told me, like, wow, like that's really, like, you got that going on. Like, yeah, like You know, it's crazy to think where I'm at today. You know, how much more practical can this get?
Yes, absolutely. Hey, one last question. One last question here. You guys are amazing. I'm going to take every single thing you say, and I'm going to do it all. One last question, but anybody who wants to answer it, you can take a crack at it. I just think that this is so real, and so here it goes. This person says, I am having a hard time getting rid of my impulse to act on every single emotion I feel. My emotions are in balance, so how can I avoid acting on them? Asking for a friend, LOL.
Zoom version of phone a friend. I see that.
Yeah.
Come on, real quick, somebody take.
I'd like to. One of the things one of my early sponsors told me is just because I feel it doesn't mean I have to do it. And that takes practice. Just because I think it doesn't mean it's true. And I had to learn that and learn it by practicing. And even today, just because my emotions say something doesn't mean I have to do it. But it's an ongoing habit that I just like the habits of recovery. One of those is not acting out just because I feel it. And yes, that's difficult. My emotions tend to, did especially in early recovery, tend to want to rule my life. And they still try to crop up and do that today.
No.
But being somebody suggested at some point, stop. Just stop. And then walk through it, preferably with a sponsor, preferably through the steps, preferably with prayer. But if I feel something, doesn't mean I have to do it. My feelings are real, but that doesn't mean I have to live on them. And just because I think it doesn't mean it's true. And that has been a learning process. So the how, I hate to do this.
Keep coming back.
Trust God, keep coming back, work the steps, get a sponsor, go to meetings. That's how. And help others.
I've been chomping at the bit to say the same thing.
Okay.
Call somebody, talk to somebody, do all the stuff. That's why they say practice these principles in all your affairs, and your emotions are part of it. Man, that's the reason we used to drink and drug, was because our emotions were going wacko. So we have
that's
tools,
a good description.
right? I mean, literally, that is why we have the tools.
Yeah.
To be able to deal with all that stuff. I used to get on the phone, one person after another, and say, could you please take a shift? And then, you know, I would make 5 phone calls a night, man.
Wait, you're not supposed to do that anymore? Wait, since when? Okay.
Arlene, I'm going to call you.
Thank everybody for taking their shift today. And you know what? I'm going to turn it over, Mike. I think this is where you kind of come in and help us bring it all together here. Here you go. Turn it over.
All right. I'm still Mike.
Right.
Okay. If this is your first night at Choose Recovery, we again welcome you and tell you to keep coming back. Recovery works. You can have a new life and a new direction if you come along with us. Nobody has all the answers to all the questions about recovery, but we all have a piece of the answer. We need each other. So let's do this together.
Yeah.
Okay, please remember to join us every Friday at 6:45 for this large meeting we're in. We always do something a little different. And then again on Monday nights, 6:45, join us for the Central Campus of Grace Church Choose Recovery large meetings. For Monday night, just search Facebook for Grace Church Central Campus at 6:45 and you'll find it. Meanwhile, don't just suffer with no recovery in between. Google traditional meetings that are happening online in lots of different ways. AA, CA, Al-Anon, NA, SAA, OA, whatever you're looking for. Food, drugs, gambling, codependency, smoking, sex, you name it. There are meetings online to help you recover. And some are opening up in person as well. Make sure to check them out and attend. The point is you don't have to be alone. Thank you, guys.
You don't have to be alone. Don't do this alone. Hey, we're going to close now, and we're going to pray a prayer together. about how recovery can help us be happy, joyous, and free. And it's called the Serenity Prayer. Probably most of you know it. But no matter where you are right now, I want to ask you if you would join me in praying this prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen and amen. Well, that just about does it for right now. For those of you that are attending this meeting, we want to thank you for being here, but also tell you that it's not over. There's a meeting after the meeting, and I hope that you'll join us. It starts at 8 o'clock, and here is the contact information on it. So here's your meeting number and your password. You know, don't go away. Just go to a new place, okay? Join us. Come to this meeting. And you know what? Take a second and invite your friends to join us too.
Thanks, Sherry. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody, for sharing tonight. It's been a lot of fun doing this Zoom Askit Basket this evening. It's good to know that there are a lot of different ways that we can experience the 5 essentials of recovery: Jesus, sponsor, 12 steps meeting, and service. Of course, we want to meet you in person at some time soon. But meanwhile, until then, hopefully we'll see you all at 8 o'clock at the meeting, after the meeting. And remember that Jesus loves you, and so do we. And now we get to end this Zoom group the way that every single Zoom meeting ends. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
It worked well.
Good to-
You guys are amazing.
Yes, we'll see you soon.